Hi all, I'm Shubhangi. In this video, I'm going to be discussing about acceleration of BI development lifecycle with AI. So the main three things we're going to be discussing about is AI-driven authoring, like mastering natural language prompt for DAX queries, explaining existing code, rapid prototyping using AI, and then workflow optimization, which is basically identifying some manual tasks that can be automated. And this is important for us to discuss because time to insight is a real competitive advantage, and sometimes too much time can be spent in data cleaning things and processes like validation instead of focusing on insight. So this should help us to like automate some of the processes and obviously like find ways in which we can use AI to our advantage. So let's talk about the AI first BI development framework. So the first one is AI driven authoring. As I said, like using natural language, we can generate DAX measures, ask AI to explain any existing calculations, refactor or optimize code. And like instead of writing the DAX from scratch, you can actually review and validate the insights. Second is rapid prototyping. Many people, when they build dashboards, obviously they generate report layouts, work on like different things. With AI, you can generate report layouts, suggest visuals, create narrative summaries, i.e., the storytelling part, and this removes the blank canvas problem and lets you focus on like the refining of insights. Third is automated documentation. Everybody needs to document something, one or the other day, about like how they're building stuff. So automated documentation can be done using AI. For example, the measures you are using, the data models, the business logic, this improves knowledge sharing and onboarding. For example, somebody new joins your team, this can be used to support them as well. So let's talk a more bit about the use cases. So for example, the first use case we can discuss about is generating DAX with NLP. So for example, you have given a prompt, create a DAX measure for year-to-date revenue, excluding refunded orders. And you can give this prompt to generative AI and it will give you an output based on that. So now instead of remembering the DAX syntax, you can validate the logic aligned with your business. Second is explaining existing DAX code. So everybody has some reports in which they have an existing logic available, and sometimes a lot of people like might take time to adapt and learn. So you can use AI to explain and understand the code and highlight any performance issues. So this helps to make sure that you have faster onboarding if you have new members joining, safer refactoring, and then shared understanding. It also helps to highlight any potential gaps or suggestions as well. The third one is rapid prototyping. Rapid prototyping is extremely useful, especially if you are building reports and writing stories or narratives. So, report layout, everybody uses them. For example, you are building a sales dashboard with a KPI, with trends and regional breakdown, and your AI can suggest you with like KPI cards, for example, revenue, growth, orders, line charts, give suggestions around like what kind of maps to use, what tables to use as well. So essentially, you are starting with a working draft, not a blank canvas, essentially. If you talk about like using it for storytelling, you can improve your insights, provide the actual reasons why some of the data is showing certain trends instead of just giving like top level information. So let's talk about the insight part in more detail. For example, you have a narrative summary to write and you give a prompt summarizes dashboard for an executive audience. Now executive audience cares more about like what's the top level insight. Then your AI put for your like dashboard, for example, is like revenue increased by 8% month over month. What essentially it does is like it creates a story for you to validate with the stakeholders. Obviously, you can validate that with your data and make sure that it actually aligns with the kind of data that you have. Like let's talk about workflow optimization. There are multiple things you can do, delegate to AI essentially to automate some of your tasks. For example, authorization or like validation of some of your data. Like you can build your own agents to like make sure that you are generating and documenting measures or writing essentially finding visual recommendation so that AI can suggest you some sort of best charts based on the kind of audience you have as well. So another thing I also want to discuss is about data model readiness. To trust AI generated insight, your model must also be well structured. It should be clearly defined and governed and consistent because at the end of the day, data is important if you're using AI. Clear semantic layers, clear metric definitions, strong data quality checks must be used so that your AI outputs are reliable and ensure that like anything that you are getting out of that is actually useful. So in the big picture, it actually helps you to automate some tasks, reduce some of the workload, and actually focus on things that matter. So you spend more time thinking about what the data is actually showing. I hope that this video gives you some insights essentially around how you can use AI to your advantage if you're developing some applications. Thank you.